So let's say now that interest rate goes down, you've got even more of these carry traders that are offside. So I'm not sure if this actually solves a problem. It may make stocks rebound, not right away. So they're probably going to have to cut not just once, but like cut a few times.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have others that are offside, but then you'll have maybe stocks are going to rebound. Anyway, I think this is the road to hell.
Well, there's a few other things going on. So Warren Buffett, which has probably the best, investment track record the last 60 years, he has, because he has to declare his filings, he's now sold more shares. He's never had more capital. He's got over $277 billion in T-bills. But the fact that Warren has never sold so many shares ever, and that was just disclosed on Friday, he just sold 100% of his Bank of America portfolio. He just sold half of Apple shares. He was the biggest shareholder. This is a sign. He's usually pretty good at raising cash before crash, and he looks like he timed it perfectly.
That's a signal for sure. Like if it's again, because it's the amount, it's the incredible amount of that cash hoard,
right?
That really makes it a signal. If it was just because he does sell stocks from time to time, but I think that says something, and I think it's instructive for people that are listening, because I think, and I've been suckered into this before, because when you think that we're going into a world of high inflation, which we are, and that inflation is not going to stop,
right?
You start getting a little crazy. Right? You start thinking, I need to put this cash to work. Like this money, this cash is not making me anything.
Right.
Welcome to the Best Half Show. This is a show all about what I think is one of the biggest ideas in the world today. That's the second half of your life could be 10 times better than your first, 10 times better, faster, richer. It's also the #1 standing podcast on the internet, because standing is actually really good.
Really,
because sitting is new smoking.
Sitting is new smoking.
That's so right. that's why we stand. That's why we have more energy here. Yeah. You have a lot of energy today.
Yes,
Roman, because you're back.
I'm refreshed. Yeah. So I did 14 days in Europe with my son, and it was incredible. It was a dream trip. My son turned 14, and when I was 14, I went to Europe for the first time. It was life-changing. So we went through Tuscany, Rome, went to Lake Como. I'd never been there. Florence. Then it was an amazing birthday party I went to, 60th birthday party of a great friend of mine in Tuscany. Then we went to see the opening ceremonies in Paris, the Olympics.
Wow, that's awesome.
That was quite an experience. We ended up in Amsterdam. We were bike riding for 3 days. It was amazing. So yeah, it was a dream trip. It was really fun.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about. Did you have some goals ahead of time for that trip? Like, what is it that made this trip different and special for you?
So it was the first time my son and I had gone outside of North America. So all of our trips were, mostly U.S. based, Florida, California, or resorts like in Cancun or Dominican Republic. They're kind of, I don't want to call them vanilla vacations, but they were kind of vanilla. So this was different. This is like us. We probably packed and unpacked like 10 times, different cities. We took trains. We took, we did every form of transportation, multiple languages. He'd never seen like one of those converters when you got to convert the electrical outlets. Like all these things were new for him. So it was really exciting for us. And the idea was just the two of us bonding, experiencing new things. And it was amazing. And one thing I did mark that I would recommend to maybe other parents is I booked all the hotels and I booked the itinerary, but he was responsible for all of the daily activities. So he had to do the research. Let's say we went to Florence. He'd have to research, like, what would I want to do in Florence? What tours? And he'd have to go and book it himself. Like, he had to go through that exercise, which was super fun because he got to like basically do our itinerary every day. And we did a lot. Like, he did an amazing job. And it was fun because I may have picked the cities, but he picked all the things that we got to do in every city.
That's brilliant. Well, good for you. That's good. I mean, one of the things that came up for me as you were talking is that I think it's the struggle that makes these vacations great. So,
yes.
And I think, when we're stressed out at work, we're like, man, I just need a vacation, right? I need a vacation. I want to make it easy.
Yeah.
I don't want to do a lot of planning, right? And then it's less than satisfying, I think, once we're there.
You're right.
Whereas I think what you've done, which is, and good for you for getting Reed to do a lot of this work, but it's a struggle with the languages.
It was a struggle. And we missed some tours. We got there on time, but we should have come early. Like, and you learn, you're like, oh, well, that happens. Like, yeah, it was struggle. And again, different languages, different cities every day. There was struggle, which made it fun.
Yeah, which made it fun. So that, as I think about now, like my best vacations were all like that. Those are the ones that are memorable And of course, like, why even take a vacation if it's not going to be memorable? I guess, yes, you get some relaxation, but you get that relaxation too when you have a vacation that has some struggle and some real effort, in it. And I think of some that I've had. I went to China and during the Olympics, 2008. It was crazy. I had dinner at the Great Wall. Climb Yellow Mountain. I mean, all kinds of crazy things. But as I think about the points of that vacation that was memorable, it was actually the tough stuff.
You're totally right.
Yeah.
So just to give you some examples, so we're in Florence, we're in a nice hotel, and we're having a shower, but like some weird stuff was coming out of the shower. I don't know if it was salt pelts, but apparently their filter had failed. So it was like really traumatic when you're having the shower. This weird stuff's coming out. But I was telling Reed about a honeymoon I had with his mom, and we had this like crazy experience at Hotel Stella in Turkey, and I was reminiscing about this really awful experience. But it's those terrible experiences, Mark, that you never forget. They're like the most unforgettable ones. I mean, I've probably forgotten all the amazing hotel stays I've had, but I don't forget like all the crazy stuff that's happened to me.
Yeah, good for you. Well, hopefully there's some insight in it for people. And it also doesn't really have to be expensive. As I think about,
You're right.
I'm thinking about a trip that I took to Brazil back in 2004. And it wasn't expensive. At the time, I didn't have any money. I think my company Eloqua sort of just had turned profitable. I was just starting to draw some money, but there wasn't a lot there. But at the time, Brazil was really cheap. The currency was down, and not everything's planned either. That's the other thing too, is that hopefully you didn't plan everything. Like, it's great when there's some time to be spontaneous.
Totally.
And yeah, I remember walking into Manaus which is a city in the middle of the Amazon jungle. It's like it's the city there in Amazonas province, and there's actually nothing booked. And and that was at a time where there wasn't a lot of English spoken. So I had some broken Portuguese that I was able to speak, and booked a trip into the jungle there at the time. It was probably like a quarter of the price as if I booked it from Toronto, by actually going into the city, going to look for the many tour places and saying, I'd like to book a tour, and ended up being really great. And also not that expensive. I think there's a lot of places in the world now where it's not expensive. Like, I'm planning on taking a trip to Japan in December, and one of the reasons why is Japan's really cheap right now. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
The yen carry trade's blowing up.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why the stock market's blowing up. But Japan is on sale. It's a great time to go and
I've
travel
always
there.
wanted to go. So yeah.
Oh, it's great. I've been to Japan a couple times. I've been to Tokyo a couple times just on business.
Yeah.
But I've never gone for fun. And I think it's
sounds
just one of the most
amazing.
amazing cultures in the world. And it's a place you probably have to just go and experience. And now it's it's on sale.
Okay, well, I'll put on my list, because now that I know my son can handle like a 9-hour flight, I'm like, okay, that's the halfway point. We can maybe go to Tokyo or Dubai or somewhere really far.
That's awesome.
So
well done, and congratulations on what you did for you. I think what you did for your son is such a great thing. And I'm sure, my guess is he might have complained a little bit and said, "Oh, why do I have to do this, Dad?
No,
why don't you do it for me?"
He was great. I mean, sometimes we don't factor in is the jet lag. And I've traveled a lot, but some people don't realize this. But let's say it's a 6-hour time difference. It takes a day for every hour to recover. So you're 6 days in before you're adjusting. I don't care what melatonin you take, whatever. Like, you can't beat it. And I've tried this my whole life to try to beat jet lag. You can't. And when you're 14 years old, that's tough. So, the one thing I would say about Europe is it's not a good 1-week destination for us. You got to go for like 2 weeks, because it takes you like a week just to acclimatize to it. But there's one other warning I have, Mark. We've been so diligent with our health until my 14 days.
Yeah.
So, Mark, when you change your diet to go 100% carbs with croissants every morning, pasta and pizza pretty much every day, I gained 10 pounds. I mean, I thought, that's okay. We're doing enormous step count. We're doing like 20,000, 25,000 steps a day. Mark, it doesn't make a difference. You gain 10 pounds in like 14 days when you change your diet. So I've learned I'm never going to do that again. I'm going to do some workouts in the future, but that was like, I learned I couldn't do that.
I think it'll come off pretty fast. So I've done it before. Like, in the middle of I did a physique transformation when I was 25. So it was 25 years ago. And went to Portugal. Now, Portugal is an easier place to stay healthy, I think, than Italy. But although their desserts are phenomenal, their breads are really good. But you can have a lot of grilled fish and that sort of thing.
Yes.
I did gain some weight when I was there, even with all the walking, but I think it's not, I guess it's kind of like a cheat week.
Right.
Maybe you overdid it a little
14
bit.
days of cheating.
But I think it does show your body, hey, like I do get fed, I'm not starving. And my guess is a lot of this will come off pretty fast.
So then my first F45 class the next day, that 45 minutes felt like 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
It was like, wow. Like it's amazing in 2 weeks how you can regress. So it was, I did a tennis lesson after, that wasn't so bad, but I did notice in the F45, it was really tough. Maybe it was jet lag, maybe it was just tired. But I did realize you just can't take 2 weeks off. That's what I learned.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's 2 weeks is a lot.
It's a lot.
And so why did you eat so many croissants? Like, did you, like, I can understand
Because
after a couple of days.
I've literally gone from like a pretty healthy diet, Mark. Like I haven't seen a croissant in 2024. Right? I hadn't, I wasn't eating pasta. Like I wasn't really eating pizza. Like all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm in Italy. Like, let's just go for it. And like the breakfast there, it's all croissants, it's pastries. So yeah, I did go a little bit crazy. But anyways, I've learned my lesson. I can't go that crazy next time.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I like fasting so much. So I love food too, just like you. I love eating well. And I think if I had to go through my life with not having, a croissant or whatever, like I wouldn't feel very good about it. So, I still go out to eat at least once a week. I went out to eat on a weekend. I was craving bread. I had bread. Right. It was amazing. Oh my God, it's so good. But I just fasted the next day.
Yeah.
And so that might be one tactic. I mean, but that might be tough when you're on vacation.
When you're on vacation, you're trying to enjoy it, and But it was a great experience. So I recommend anyone that's not done their vacation, even getting away for 3 or 4 days. Like we forget the benefits of it. We did some research before today, and there's so many health benefits of vacations. Like we need to get out of our typical environment. It helps you relax. It creates creativity again. It does a lot for us. And you don't need to go for 2 weeks. You can go for a few days, and you can go for hiking for a few days. But it really does some amazing things for us.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, I think hiking, where we are in Canada, there's lots of great places
so
to
many
do that,
beautiful
where you can
spots.
get the sun and where you have a chance to think. And I think the digital detox is important. I don't know how much you were on your phone.
Just take other than taking photos or videos, not really. Just it was more just taking, because we saw some incredible things. But no, I really wasn't like following a lot of social media stuff, but I was taking a lot of photos and videos. Yeah,
so that's one thing I've found lately that's been hard is even on vacation, I find, it's all there. I've got X there, and these days X is so addictive right now because it's the only place in the world we can actually find the truth.
Yeah,
on
you're
a lot
right.
of things.
You're right.
And there's so many things going on. So you think about right now, and I guess we could probably segue into that.
Yes.
Everything from the Olympics, which is bonkers, and you saw some of that bonkers stuff.
It was disturbing.
Right? Where you saw the opening ceremony. I'd love to hear more about that. I remember sending you saying, hey, is this actually going on? Like, are you seeing this? Is this like a little sideshow thing? And you're like, no, it's not a sideshow.
It's actually worse than you think.
It was actually worse than I thought. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You now have 2 male boxers competing for the gold medal in women's boxing.
Unbelievable.
Which is just bananas. So you've got all this Olympic stuff going on. You got a stock market crash. And
imminent war about to be
exactly in Israel and whatnot. You've got riots in the UK where you've got where it looks like it's pretty serious, and governments are clamping down on free speech and all kinds of other things. So all of this is happening
at the same time.
And so it would be really hard to unplug with all this going on.
No, you're right. But just talk about some disturbing things that I did notice. So we went to the Louvre museum in Paris. Incredible. I mean, I would have paid just to walk around the building. Forget about the art. The building itself is worth seeing, but the art was amazing. But there were some disturbing things, Mark. And I won't get into details of it, but there were some paintings that were literally so disturbing that I had to leave. Hi, it's Roman Bodnarchuk from the Best Half Show. Today is all about 10xing your life, 10xing your health, 10xing your business, 10xing your income. Our entire show is about making the second half of your life 10 times better than your first. But today we want you to 10x your algorithms. By you pressing subscribe right now on the Best Half Show, all of a sudden the feed that you get from Apple, from YouTube, from Spotify will change. You're going to get content like ours, content that will help you 10x your life. So press subscribe now and 10x your life. Things that if you had them in any other environment, you'd be considered like a pedophile, like stuff that you shouldn't be seeing. And it was the only part of the Louvre where they told you couldn't take photos. So they literally have these like pedophile, art, and they're like, oh, you can't take photos here, but everywhere else you could take photos and videos. Like it was just, who organizes this stuff? So then when I went to the opening ceremony, like I wasn't shocked to see men dressed like women with beards, like all this like weird anti-Christian stuff. Like it was just like, what does this have to do with the Olympics? So it was a bit disturbing. And the other thing was interesting about Paris, I don't want to say it was dead, but it was like completely uncrowded. There are 40,000 like military police, you have policemen with AK-47s. Like it doesn't look like the police, it looks like military. But it wasn't very crowded. So I don't know what was happening, but why the Olympics would not have that many people in Paris, why streets were like basically empty except for all the military and all the police. It was a bit strange. So there's definitely some weird things going on in Paris.
Yeah, that sounds more than a bit strange. So how did you explain this stuff to your son? Because, I mean, there's a lot of just this weirdness going on.
Yeah, it was hard, Mark, because I would try to explain to my son, like, hey, we're going to leave now. We don't watch that. He would say, Dad, you're reading into this stuff too much. Like you're thinking about this too much. And I said, no. Like when they're taking the Last Supper and doing this crazy mockery of it, like, I don't think I'm reading into this stuff. Like this is just, or I don't know if you saw the last part with the horseman. Like this is stuff like right out of the Bible. Like this is just really scary stuff. So, but my son again has been, I don't know what they call that when they've been brainwashed at school for so many years. He's like, oh, this is normal. I'm like, this isn't normal, son. Like this isn't normal.
No, it's scary. And I think you're seeing like a big rise in homeschooling and all this kind of stuff because you're right. These people are thinking that it's normal.
Right.
And I don't know what's going on in the culture in the last few years, but which really appears to be government sanctioned.
Right.
Where they're pushing this kind of
agenda. Yeah, you see in every movie, right? Every movie you see, it's like the white male is always the idiot, and like it's always it's incredible. It's very obvious when you start. As soon as you start cluing into this, you're like, wow, every TV show's like this, every movie's like this now. Wow, yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. With my kids, I try to explain a little bit of what's going on, and because I think that I guess traditional culture, I don't know what you call it, Judeo-Christian culture, is a threat, like to people that those that are in charge. Right?
Yeah.
So I think it is an opportunity to say, look, these are our values. So I get it that you got some values over here that are really weird and questionable. But yeah, there's traditional values around, getting married, having a family, doing what's right, having integrity, working hard, building a business. That I think are things that we want to promote to our kids.
I think it's never been more important to be a strong parent than now. And I'm seeing this with my kids because again, they've been brainwashed through the school system here. But I had some breakthroughs this week. I got a message from my daughter. She's doing an interior design project in Miami, and she's like, Dad, I did this walking tour, the Art Deco walking tour of Miami Beach, which I've never told her this, but it's like one of my favorite walking tours in the world. I'm like, that's really cool.
This is one in Miami?
This is Miami, yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
It's like the best Art Deco area in the world.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I did that tour. It's fantastic.
It's fantastic. Yeah. So, but when your 19-year-old daughter does, I'm like, that's so cool. And then she's like, Dad, I did a 5-mile bike ride. Like my daughter's really not into like a lot of, bike rides, but I'm like, wow. So then I started thinking, well, maybe somehow there's some influence. I'm influencing her. And then my son, which really shocked me, my 16-year-old, he finds this investment property, which is like amazing in Toronto. And for those of you that don't really do this, but I have a very strict criteria, things that make sense for me. It's very hard for me to find property. Sometimes it'll take me 3 years to find one that meets my 16-year-old. He found one, and I'm like, wow, like maybe all these like videos I've been sending my kids, like maybe it's paying off. So sometimes there's a bright light in these things. But again, I think being a strong parent, sometimes you don't see the benefits now, but maybe you will when they're older. But it's important. It's really important because the traditional media is warping them. The school system is warping them. We have to give them guidance.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Sounds like that's going in the right direction for you. So yeah, I mean, as we're recording this, there's lots of crazy shit going on in the world.
Yeah.
So as of right now, NASDAQ is down like 8%. A lot of tech stocks are down over 12%. I think Bitcoin's down about 20% overnight. I think it's come back up a little bit. Ethereum's down 25%. A lot of things are crashing, and people may wonder what's going on. So by the time this gets released, maybe more information is known about it. But I think what a lot of people don't know is that there's a situation in Japan that's been building for quite a while, and it's something that I've noticed. I mean, I remember months ago talking to people I know and saying, I don't know how Japan gets out of this situation, and this is the reason, I guess, the proximal reason for what's going on today. So I think it's useful for people to understand.
Let's walk through the backdrop. Why this happened.
What's going on? So Japan is one of the most indebted countries in the world, and for some reason they've been able to get away with it just because Japanese are such incredible, savers. So for years, like the Japanese interest rate was actually even below zero, but,
right?
Close to zero, below zero, a little bit above zero, and because that rate has been so stable, that you've had these giant hedge funds that are able to borrow massive amounts of money in yen. So therefore, they're sort of short the yen. It drives down the value of it, borrowing that money, and then they're investing that, a lot of it in the United States. So some of it is even just buying U.S. debt. Even that differential is pretty significant.
Right.
So, and if you borrow enough, like if you can borrow like 10 billion of yen and then buy U.S. debt with it, or buy tech stocks. So a lot of the incredible rise in these tech stocks are actually due to what this is called the carry trade. And this carry trade is now unwinding because basically the yen has been getting hammered. A few months ago, there was a very momentous thing that happened. And that is that for the first time, the Japanese central bank owned more than 50% of all of its debt. Now that shouldn't happen. How can you print as much yen as you want and then buy your own debt with it? I mean, that's the road to hell.
Right.
And so now they're stuck. They can't really raise rates very much because if they raise rates, then they raise rates to protect their currency, but now their debt becomes more expensive because the rates are higher. If they lower interest rates, then the value of the currency goes down even further. So they're in a pickle. And so they just raise their rates just a little bit, just a quarter of a point.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
But that was enough. A quarter point is enough. Again, if someone's borrowed billions and billions of dollars, that might be enough for them to be offside. So basically this threat is that all of this huge amounts of money that was fueling the US stock market is now going in reverse.
And it's amazing, Mark, because I think they expected it to go like 0.10 and it just went, it was a 0.25. It's very small, but look what happened.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And I don't know how they get out of it. So, I mean, I do expect an emergency rate cut by the time this goes to press. We may actually have it. We'll see.
Yeah,
in the
Fed is having
days.
an emergency meeting.
Yeah. The thing is, though, okay, so they do that, and so they
print more money.
They go and reduce the interest rate.
Right.
Now, what happens is that carry trade is now even less attractive. Again, you gotta think that these people are so highly leveraged.
Right.
It's like people, if you buy real estate, and even if you put 20% down, if the price of the property goes down by 20%,
you've lost your all.
You're now, whatever. If it goes up more than 20%, you're offside because you're leveraged.
Exactly.
And that's not a lot of leverage.
Right.
These people are leveraged like an incredible amount. Right. So if things go down just a little bit, which is what you saw in Japan. So let's say now that interest rate goes down, you've got even more of these carry traders that are offside. So I'm not sure if this actually solves a problem. It may make stocks rebound, not right away. So they're probably gonna have to cut not just once, but like cut a few times.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna have others that are offside, but then you'll have maybe stocks are going to rebound. Anyway, I think this is the road to hell.
Well, there's a few other things going on. So Warren Buffett, which has probably the best investment track record the last 60 years, he has because he has to declare his filings. He's now sold more shares. He's never had more capital. He's got over $277 billion in T-bills. But the fact that Warren has never sold so many shares ever, and that was just disclosed on Friday, he just sold 100% of his Bank of America portfolio. He just sold half of Apple shares. He was the biggest shareholder. This is a sign. He's usually pretty good at raising cash before a crash, and he looks like he timed it perfectly.
That's a signal for sure. Like if it's again, because it's the amount, it's the incredible amount of that cash hoard,
right?
That really makes it a signal. If it was just because he does sell stocks from time to time, but I think that says something. I think it's instructive for people that are listening, because I think, and I've been suckered into this before, because when you think that we're going into a world of high inflation, which we are, and that inflation is not going to stop,
Right.
you start getting a little crazy, right? You start thinking, I need to put this cash to work. Like this money, this cash is not making me anything.
Right.
So a couple of great next steps for you. In my regular life, I am a CEO coach. If you are running a company and you are looking to build a $1 billion business while having a lot more fun and success with greater health and relationships and making money along the way, then I'm your guy. Come to categoryknots.com. That's category and then knots, NAUTS.com. And then also smash that like button, make some comments. We will be there to answer and love to hear from you all about the Best Half Show. I need to put it to work. I need to go buy real estate with it, or stocks or whatever, or even invest in myself. And one of the things that I read is that even if that cash is costing you money, you should have it anyway. It gives you a margin of safety. It allows you to buy incredible bargains. And I don't think there's bargains right now in the U.S. like a U.S. stock market, right? Yeah, so things have gone down by 10% or whatever, or even Bitcoin down 20%. I don't know. I don't think it's a bargain. I think it's better to sit and wait and have, like, at least you have money to fight another day. I don't think it's a good idea to have a lot of debt. I mean, even though in high inflation, having debt, that debt gets inflated away, but you've got these massive downdrafts and you can get caught.
No, I agree. Leverage right now is pretty scary. But there's some other things happening. So right now, the Bank of Canada is pumping $16 billion a day into our big banks. So our big banks literally could be failing if it wasn't for Bank of Canada. Bank of Canada actually doesn't have any money. So they have to print money to give it to the banks. So they're deflating our own dollar here to keep our big banks afloat. And the reason for this is all of the commercial loans, which is about $1 trillion, which will expire this year, of commercial. These buildings are worth 10 or 20 cents on the dollar. There's a building in Manhattan just sold last week. The last purchase price was $338 million. It just sold for $8.5 million. This is Class A Manhattan real estate, selling at pennies on the dollar.
That is because it's just the building and not the land. But that said, it's still
right.
It's still, I know that story. It's still a big discount. Yeah, no, you're right. Because right now these buildings are not marked to market; they're marked to myth.
Right.
Yeah. No.
And the banks are holding all the debt. So the banks, there could be more bank failures than any time in history. So all this is happening at the same time as this thing is happening in Japan. We've got an imminent war now with Iran and Israel. I mean, this is a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, for sure. I can't imagine banks failing in Canada. I mean, one of the things I've said before on the show, like the central bank will always save the system and sacrifice the currency for it. So I think what you said, which is they're printing all this money.
They print more money.
Stuffing it into these banks.
Right.
Because I think the commercial banks and central banks are like tied together like this.
Right.
But I think what it does mean is like this inflation is not going to go away.
Right.
It's going to keep going because they're going to print money. So yeah, what do you do in a situation? It's tough.
Yeah.
I think you need to be prudent. I think you need to have a healthy margin of safety. Yeah. So that means like you have some cash. It means you have some cash that's like outside of the banking system. That's actually in a form of cash. Like it's not in the form of gold or Bitcoin or whatever, even though that cash is losing value. Even if it's losing value at 15% a year, you still probably want to have some around because I think there's so much craziness that's going on. I think you need to have some of it invested properly as well in things that do well in inflation, and even have things that do well in this kind of environment. So like right now, for example, I'm short on TSMC, which is a high-flying stock, but my bet is that we're in an AI massively overinflated bubble. Mm-hmm. That's down 12% today, so that's done well. There are some stocks or some places where like Germany, I think, is in real trouble. I think Germany's in big trouble. I think it's a great place to go short right now because, I think they've got lots of cultural problems. Again, you've been in Europe, you can see that not all is well in Europe right now. Right. Europe is sick. It's a fine place to go and visit on vacation. Yeah. I certainly would not want to live there. And Germany has been making its living, selling high tech to China. But that's starting to really fall off. Like China's building their own very sophisticated domestic high tech industry, and Germany is like getting old. And, I think that the German economy would be a shadow of where it is today. And so I think you got to look for those opportunities that where you have things that are overvalued as well.
So I know we don't make any investment advice on this show,
that's right.
and we would never do that. But we can talk about what we're doing personally. So I've been predicting this real estate crash for a long time, and I'm researching and finding some incredible opportunities, and they're starting to emerge. I do think in the stock market, there's some opportunities when there's a crash. I do like the Magnificent Seven. I think anytime you can buy great companies that just print cash, like Google or Meta. I mean, these companies literally have like 80% profit margins. I think when you can buy them at 30, 40% discount, to me, that's like a Black Friday special. Yeah. And I'd be willing to wait 5 years or 10 years because I do think, like if you'd bought Amazon just before the bubble, 1999, it went from $117 to $5. Yeah, it was pretty painful to go through that, but you would have made 500x in your money if you waited. So I do think great companies that just print cash, that have a clear dominant position like a Microsoft or a Google, I think it's tough to go wrong when you can buy them at huge discounts.
Yeah, I don't know if you're at a discount yet. I still think these are, again, because of the yen carry trade, they're still, the question is at what price?
At what price?
So I wouldn't want to ride that Amazon wave down from 174. And I mean, that was overinflated at 174, even though the thesis was sound.
Yeah.
I don't think that's really a wave you want to ride it. So I guess the question is what really constitutes a discount?
So in real estate, I look at replacement costs. So the deal my son found, he found a property that would work for my co-living business. And he found it at a price which, if you gave me the land for free, I couldn't rebuild this at the same price you're selling it for. So in real estate, it's easy for me. I look at replacement cost. So what would be an equivalent in the stock market?
Well, you do have kind of equivalent. So like what, for example, like what is, if you were to build a new LinkedIn, how much would that cost you to build? Because LinkedIn is now part of Microsoft, right?
Right.
So I think replacement cost is actually very valid in stocks as well. So I think you can look at, and I think that's one of the reasons why these social networks are valued so highly, is that it's very difficult to build it again, right? Because you have to build all new network effects that are coming out of it. So I think you can do that. That said, I mean, if you look at some of those Magnificent Seven, like those profit margins have been coming down steadily.
Except for Meta. So Meta last quarter, or just had their last quarter, I mean, their profit, like 79% profit. 3.2 billion people on this planet are using, Meta apps every day. It's incredible what Zuckerberg has done there. So some of these cannot be replicated.
Yeah, that is smart. It's, buying Instagram for $1 billion is amazing. My guess is that is where their profits are coming from, because who uses the Blue app anymore? I don't know.
Well, I think what they've done is they've perfected their advertising. So remember when Apple said, you can't use all the cookie data, and we thought, oh my God, Meta's done. But look what they did. They put their AI, which is search bar, in front of everything they use. So if you use WhatsApp, you use Instagram, you use Facebook, there's the Meta search bar. So now they've got intent. They've got buyer's intent. They're basically, talk about competing with Google, So I think Meta's done an incredible job. So again, when I look at stocks like that, and if I can buy them at a significant discount, wow, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, the question is, at what discount? To me, I wouldn't wade in unless it's down, to me, 50%.
And it could happen. It could happen. For a short period of time, it could happen.
Yeah, and you could always dollar cost average. So if you think it's a discount being off 10% today, you can put a little bit in and then put more and more and more in if you have a budget for that as things go down.
But there's huge risk. If you thought Intel was a great company, but now it's trading at the level it was 20 years ago. It's so sad. Some great companies just lose it.
Yeah, and that's another great trade, right? Is to look at, don't just look at the potential winners. There's ones that Intel, if you, and I really miss this one. I really miss going short on Intel. I really should have known better, because I've actually been interested in semiconductors for a while. Instead, I've decided to go short on the most valuable one, because I thought there's just way too much AI hype. But that's nothing to do, is that there are winners and losers, and you can make money on the losers as well. Especially now when you have this backdrop of panic that's going on.
Yeah, but I do. So again, if somebody had extra cash It was sitting in an account making 0% interest. Might be an interesting week to go buy something that you really think is going to be super valuable.
Yeah, I think as long as you do have some cash sitting around, right?
Right.
So, I mean, one of the things that I've read is that you make the most you make the most money by having a balanced portfolio, and I think that includes having some cash, right? Like, what if this amazing building that you saw that your son found?
Yeah.
So it's a good deal now.
Yeah.
What if it got 20% cheaper?
Yeah.
What if instead of there being one building, now there's like 3 buildings that are available, but you don't have the dry powder to be able to buy it, and the banks aren't lending for one reason or other? Because that happens during, I've noticed every crisis, the banks stop lending.
Yeah.
But if you have cash, like, the world is your oyster. So even though your cash is losing you, whatever the interest rate, whatever inflation actually is right now, 10% a year.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're able to buy buildings at a 40
Huge
or
discount.
50% discount,
Right.
you've actually made a great return by having that cash sitting.
Yeah, no, I agree. Look, the best investments in your life, sometimes the ones you don't make. So sometimes you have to sit some out. But I do think this is an interesting opportunity with the real estate crash, the stock market crash. I don't think people should be depressed about it. For those people that were never able to get into the stock market, now they can get in at a discount. So it's an interesting time.
Yeah, I may be depressed about it, but at the same time, this is a time to be prudent, right? So this is what you're seeing right now in the market may be a reflection of expectation of a recession. So today the yield curve uninverted. So if you look at probably the most reliable signal for recession is when interest rates are what's called inverted for a while. So that so normally it should be you should get more interest by buying, let's say, 10-year note versus a 2-year, right? You should get paid more for that because you're putting your money at risk for longer. When things are inverted, it's the opposite, that you actually get paid more for putting your money for a shorter length of time than a longer length of time. So why does that happen? Well, it's because what the market is saying is that there's actually more risk further out. So, but that's not when a recession happens. The recession actually happens when things uninvert again and go back to normal. So that is super reliable signal, like almost every time when you have this inversion and then things uninvert, and it could be head fakes, like some things that uninvert and go back, whatever. Yeah. But if that's sustained, it's a recession every time. So what we might be seeing with the markets being hit hard right now, other than the yen carry traders being carried out on stretchers, is that a recession is here. Not that it's coming; it's already here. Yeah. And so this is not a good time to be like out of a job. Like this is not if you're in a startup, you have a chance to go and raise some money now. I would raise money now. I would have that money in the bank.
Like companies like Intel, like laying off 10,000 people. Yeah. That's a sign.
I would get, if you've been thinking about a side hustle and launching that, this is a good time to actually get that going and having multiple streams of income. I think this is a time for margin. You think of margin of safety, like your own personal margin of safety. How do I make sure, like, what if I do lose my job? What if my core business basically, becomes difficult? It is for me. Like, there may be less people wanting to buy expensive CEO coaching in the future. Right. You might want to have something else going on.
I think your advice is great because I think Canada definitely is in a recession. We've probably been in one for a while, except when you bring an extra 1.5 million people, that's how they were able to make it look like we weren't in a recession. We clearly are. So I think your advice is smart. Like maybe now's not time to buy that new car or that house you can't afford. Now it's time to be really prudent and be careful because we probably are in recessionary times.
Yeah, just have a margin of safety, and you're saying like, if within that margin of safety you've got some extra money to go buy, Meta stock at 10% off, then then you can do it. But even then, I would scale into that, and I would not go and deploy all of that money because I think what we're seeing today is there's something really big going on behind the scenes.
There's something big, and even in real estate, I actually like to buy when I've missed the first 5 or 10% increase, because you can never time the bottom. Right. So I don't mind losing the first 5 or 10%. I want to see real statistics that we're actually going up versus we're continuing to go down. So that's why you got to be patient in these times.
Yeah, no, I saw some really good advice from Porter Stansberry on there. He's a great speculator, and he's got a newsletter around speculation, and he talks about 3 things: so cheap, hated, and coming back up.
Coming back up. That's
so that's why I wouldn't buy Meta stock.
Right.
It's not cheap.
Yeah.
It's not hated.
Yeah.
Like, wait, I wouldn't buy that, right? I wouldn't buy any of the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
The time to really buy, or especially to buy big, is when they're cheap and hated. So if you think back in 2020, when it looked like Meta was really falling off a cliff, it looked like Meta could not do anything right. Well, even the name Meta was retarded.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
There was Facebook and it's Meta. What the hell is Meta?
Yeah.
And they spent all this money on WhatsApp, and it was unclear if WhatsApp would ever make anything.
Right.
And they
put all their money to metaverse. They're going all in on metaverse.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. All in on metaverse. I mean,
Yeah.
it really looked, and I think in hindsight, I don't think metaverse really did amount to much. So,
Didn't.
I mean, Zuck turned that around.
But he did.
But it really looked like they'd lost their head. A lot of people were calling for Zuckerberg to resign.
Yeah.
Right. That's the time to buy, right? The
Right.
time to buy is when like the proverbial blood is running in the streets. It's
Yeah.
not what you see in a Magnificent Seven at all. So I think you might want to look at what is cheap and hated, but is actually, on the way back up. And I really don't know what the answer on that is right now, but that's actually worth looking into. I know with me, what I'm really interested in are global. I'm looking at global opportunities. So I'm personally excited about Argentina. I've actually been investing in Argentina for a while in terms of their stocks. And when I bought, it was cheap and hated and on the way up. Okay.
Right.
Because everyone's like, Argentina, that's an effed up place. They've had socialism for 100 years. And this is before Milei got elected.
Yeah.
They've had socialism for 100 years. They have rampant inflation. They've got all these problems. The government's always stealing from everybody. Why would anybody invest there? But things were so cheap. I mean, you could buy like utilities, which I did, so Pampa Energia. You could buy it for 2 times cash flow. It's nothing. And meanwhile, it's a utility. Like, people need electricity. Like, that's not going away, anytime soon. And you could buy that really cheap. But if you were to zoom out, you would see that actually they've been going up for years. So the fact that Milei has been elected, I mean, a lot of people are looking, oh, wow, that's a big catalyst. But the conditions were in place for him to get elected for years. That's why he got elected, is that people are sick of the socialism, they're sick of the corruption, and they're ready for something new in Argentina. So I'm really excited about it. I want to go visit in November.
So I think the point is invest in things that you're passionate about, about. So I think about Peter Lynch, which ran one of the most successful funds for decades, Magellan Fund. And I remember reading his book in the 80s. And he talked about, think about where you spend your money. And invest in those companies. So I think about, I spend my money at Tesla, I spend money, Apple, every device I have is connected to Google and Meta. So I think you need to invest in things that you understand and that you see a big future of. You're passionate about Argentina because you know a lot about it. But I think for most people, think about a company, like for example, like if you've been buying Nikes your whole life and you're obsessed with Nike, that probably would have been a good stock pick for the last 25 years for you.
Though? I mean, Nike's fallen off a cliff, right? So at what price? So I think that advice is good when you're in like a roaring bull market, right? But I don't know. Maybe you can sort of merge the two of those. But I think cheap, hated, and on the way back up.
Yeah.
Again, if you're thinking prudently, then I think that's what you want to do. So if there's something out there that you like, but is also inexpensive, then I think it's a good fit. But
good. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
So for those of you panicking during this global stock market, just don't panic. It's going to be fine. Everyone's going to be fine. Focus on what you can control, and we can control our health. We can control what we're focused on, and I think we need to stay focused in times like this because this is a cycle, and cycles go up and they go down. Any parting words, Mark?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm not as sanguine. I think there's something really big going on. It's just started.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to take some time to process, and maybe by the time that this appears on Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube, we'll know more about it. But yeah, I agree not to panic, but I do agree that this is a time for prudence, to be prudent and to have a healthy margin of safety personally in your sort of personal financial situation. So it's something that I'm doing today. I'm making sure that I'm reducing leverage even further than I have. I've been doing that for months.
Yeah.
But yeah, good time to do that. Good time to if you've been thinking about another line of business or whatnot, to expand into other things that might increase your cash flow, it's a good time to do it.
I agree. So we're starting an exclusive community. It's called the Best Half Club. And it's an exclusive community where we're going to be sharing some of our personal investments that we're making. We can't make investment advice, but we can share things that we're doing. You're going to have personal access to Mark and myself. We have some really private events that we're going to be hosting. So if you want to be part of the Best Half Club, we invite you to subscribe. There will be an application process. We're not going to accept everybody. But if you do click on the subscribe button today, we will send you an application form for the Best Half Club. It's not going to be fee-based. We're just looking for the right people, and we look forward to joining you. So please subscribe today so we can send you the invitation.